Captain HFY of the Vortex Syndicate had made a career out of boarding civilian transports. His six-armed frame was perfectly adapted for zero-G combat, and his crew of seasoned pirates had never met a species they couldn't intimidate into submission. When their sensors detected the human cargo vessel Prosperity drifting alone in the Kepler belt, it seemed like another routine job. Standard procedure. HFY clicked to his lieutenant, Mordak. They'll surrender the moment they see our plasma cannons. Humans are soft, frightened creatures. This will be over in minutes. The Prosperity appeared defenseless. No visible weapons, minimal shielding, just another lumbering freight hauler carrying supplies to the outer colonies. HFY's ship, the Reaper's Edge, moved into position with practiced efficiency. His crew had done this dance 1,000 times across 100 systems. "Human vessel, you are being boarded," HFY transmitted. "Do not resist, and you will not be harmed." The response crackled back through the comm system in heavily accented standard. "Acknowledged. We are, how you say, complying." Perfect. Even their surrender sounded pathetic. The docking clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk. HFY selected his finest warriors, Mordak with his razor-sharp claws, Geltok whose acid spit could melt through armor, and 8 others who had terrorized shipping lanes for decades. They sealed their combat suits and moved toward the airlock, weapons charged and ready. "Remember," HFY growled, "we want the crew alive for ransom. The humans pay well for their own kind." The airlock cycled open with a mechanical hiss. What greeted them was not the sterile cargo hold they expected. The space beyond was dimly lit by emergency lighting, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe and dance. The air hung thick with an odd metallic scent that made their breathing apparatus work harder. And there, standing calmly in the center of the chamber, was a single human. She was unremarkable at first glance, average height by human standards, wearing standard crew coveralls. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her face bore the weathered look of someone who had spent years in deep space. But her eyes held something that made HFY's warrior instincts suddenly scream warnings. "Welcome aboard the Prosperity," she said, her voice carrying an odd cheerfulness. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen. We've been expecting you." Mordak snorted, raising his plasma rifle. "One human thinks she can stand against—" The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing everything in hellish red. And in that crimson glow they saw them. Dozens of humans emerging from the shadows like specters. But these weren't the soft, frightened civilians HFY had expected. These humans moved with predatory grace, their eyes reflecting the red, light like those of nocturnal hunters. "You see," Commander Chen continued conversationally, "this isn't actually a cargo transport. Well, not in the way you think." She gestured around the chamber. "The Prosperity is carrying a very special kind of cargo to the Kepler colonies. 200 human volunteers for the Colonial Defense Corps. Former military mostly. Marines, Special Forces, Navy SEALs. They've been in cryo-sleep for 3 months, dreaming of their new assignments." HFY felt his confidence beginning to crack. "This changes nothing. We outnumber—" "Do you, though?" Chen interrupted gently. "I count 11 of you. We have 200. And here's the thing about human soldiers, Captain HFY. Yes, we know who you are. We don't particularly like pirates who prey on civilian shipping." A low growl began to emanate from the shadows, not from one throat but from dozens. It was a sound that bypassed rational thought and struck directly at the primordial fear centers of the Vorthak brain. "You made one critical error in your intelligence gathering," Chen said, beginning to walk slowly around the trapped pirates. "You assumed we were helpless because we didn't shoot first. That's not helplessness, Captain. That's confidence." Mordak fired wildly into the shadows. His plasma bolt illuminated a dozen human faces for a split second, faces that wore expressions of terrible anticipation. The bolt struck nothing but bulkhead. "Let me tell you what's going to happen," Chen continued. "You're going to return to your ship. You're going to send a message to every pirate, slaver, and raider in this sector, and you're going to tell them that human transports are off limits, permanently. "We will not," Zexai began. His words died as one of the humans stepped fully into the light. The man was massive even by human standards, his arms covered in scars and tattoos that seemed to writhe in the shifting light. He carried no weapon, but his bare hands looked more than sufficient. "The alternative," Chen said softly, "is that we give our people a little practice session. It's been 3 months since they've had any real exercise, and humans get restless when confined too long." The growling grew louder. More figures emerged from the darkness, men and women who looked like they had been forged in the fires of a dozen wars. They moved with the fluid coordination of pack hunters surrounding the pirates without seeming to hurry. Zexai's nerve finally broke. The airlock," he stammered. "We'll leave. We'll send your message." "I thought you might see reason," Chen smiled, and somehow that smile was more terrifying than all the weapons in the galaxy. "Safe travels, Captain. And remember, the next human transport you encounter might not be feeling so generous." As the pirates scrambled back through the airlock, Zexai caught one last glimpse of the Prosperity's cargo hold. In the brief moment before the airlock sealed, he saw rows upon rows of cryopods, each one marked with military designation codes, each one containing a human warrior who had spent decades learning the art of war. The docking clamps released, and the Reaper's Edge limped away from the Prosperity at maximum burn. 3 days later, every pirate haven in the sector received the same message. Human transports are not to be touched. This is not a negotiation. The Prosperity continued on its journey to the outer colonies, where 200 human soldiers would help establish humanity's newest outpost. But throughout the shipping lanes, a new understanding began to spread. Humans didn't need to look dangerous to be the most terrifying predators in the galaxy. They had something far more frightening than fangs or claws or natural armor. They had each other.